Today, we're going to be talking about how to do SQL Server monitoring using and troubleshooting using Microsoft tools, community tools, with the premise that all of them are free tools, right? So without spending any single coin, we can just go and do troubleshooting and monitoring in our event. So for all of you that are already member of PAS, please explore all the training and community option that PAS offer to all the members. So definitely you are more than welcome to join all the training offering. If you miss the PAS Summits 2019, well, the recording are available to download. Well, we just had the PAS Summit last week, so actually 2 weeks ago. So most probably the recordings will be available really soon. Thank you so much to all the global sponsors, because without them, definitely we cannot do this event. So thank you so much for being part of the community and give us your support. Okay, quickly about myself, Javier Villegas. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I am at Buenos Aires, Argentina right now. So I work as an IT director in data and BI at Mediterranean Shipping Company. I've been involved with SQL Server since the very first version, 6065. And also with the Azure SQL family. My specialty is administration, performance tuning, and high availability. I am Microsoft MVP in the data platform category, and recently I became a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm also a technical speaker, member of PAS community, as mentioned before. And here in Argentina, I'm member of our local community, SQL Argentina. We do have our meetups and events that we normally run with our local community in Spanish. In the left side of the screen, you will see my contact information, email address, Twitter, LinkedIn, and my blog. Feel free to reach me if you want to talk or discuss something in particular about this presentation or any other thing. I always like to connect and network with the community members. So just starting, I just want to make a couple of points clear that what we're gonna see today. Basically, I know that every database administrator, every IT professional has its own, let's say, toolbox, right? With their scripts, with their applications, paid or free, to do troubleshooting and monitoring. The idea of this session is to get to know some of them that are coming from Microsoft, maybe just cover them a little bit deeper for some point that maybe you don't know yet. And also we will cover some solutions created by community experts, right, and shared as free options. One of the important things that I like to remark also is that there is no magic that will fix a bad code. That means whatever solution we have to do monitoring or troubleshooting, well, if the code is not well written, well, that's going to be tough for us, the administrators, right? So I like to focus on train the developers, right? If we would like to have our environment let's say, running as smoothly as possible, we should definitely spend time with them, just training on how we would like them to write T-SQL, right? Teaching them the best practices on how to write the right code based on Microsoft suggestions, our own suggestions. So this way, and hopefully, I know that is not always totally true, but we may not have to use all the things that we will learn today, right? But definitely, if you are in this position, spend some time, maybe a couple of hours a week, a couple of hours a month, doesn't matter. But sit down all together, write these best practices and documentation to train the developers. Moving forward on how we can, let's say, identify and work on a troubleshooting process, right? This is not something that one day we wake up and say, hey, we have a performance problem. Let's see what happened. Let's try to solve it. No, this is something that is a constant process, right? A repeatable process, actually. It's extremely important that we observe how our environment behaves, right? And how it behaves on a normal situation, right? This will help us to capture several performance metrics and counters related to multiple things, I/O, runtime, memory grants, weight, etc. And with that, we're going to have this picture of our environment when it's running in, let's say, the right way. So when we are under pressure, when we are suffering a performance problem, we will use these traces, all these processes that we are capturing, and we will match them and compare it with the best, with the baseline that we already got when the environment was running okay. And with that, it's going to be easier, I would say, to identify where the problem is. We are running with a CPU problem because right now the CPU is much higher than usual. We have more weight on a particular resource than usual. The disk activity is higher than usual, right? Doing this comparison between the current values versus the baseline will also help us to adjust, meaning fix the problem somehow, right? And then repeat the whole process again, right? Observe, capture, troubleshoot, fix, and repeat. Okay, this is quickly the agenda we will cover. Let's see that the top part of the topics are mostly related to Microsoft technologies, and then the bottom part is more related to community experts solutions. Okay, let's start right away. Performance monitor and profiler. Well, most probably you know these tools, right? These are the first two tools that every junior DBA get in order to do troubleshooting, right? With Performance Monitor, we can easily capture metrics related to the operating system in terms of memory, CPU, disk activity, any kind of counter related to disk, and also related to SQL, right? We can check batch requests per second, we can check compilations, recompilations, etc., right? So with that, we can grab a bunch of information related to the host and to the SQL. With Profiler, this is the very first tool, again, that we get. If we need to see live what is happening within our SQL instance and understand all the workload, we can just set Profiler, right, and capture data. Something important is that these two tools allow us to, let's say, capture and save the traces that we are capturing, right? But then something really good that we will see later in the demo is that there is a way in where we can correlate, right, the traces captured with profilers with the traces captured with performance monitor, right? So based on the timestamp of each of these traces, we're going to be able to match and see and understand it a little bit better, because we can see at exactly a single point in time what was happening at overall level: host, SQL, and statement or workload running in our server at that particular moment. Then we also have SQL Server Management Studio Activity Monitor. This is a tool that, again, we know it. It's been there since many years ago. In reality, nobody uses it much, right? But it's a nice tool because you can connect to your SQL instance and see some charts of weight, CPU, memory usage, see the heaviest workload or activity in your server, etc., etc., etc. But let's suppose this situation. Let's assume that we are running this very important report that runs every night, right, around 4 a.m. in the morning, and normally takes half an hour. That particular day, we arrived to the office and we got the phone call saying, hey, this important report that we always get in our mailbox early in the morning, we still didn't get it, and it's 8 a.m. All right, so we start doing troubleshooting, and we notice that that process, that report, is still running on the server. Come on, normally takes half an hour, and today it's been running for several hours and still hasn't finished. So we need to take a decision. What do we do with this in order to do troubleshooting? The point is that until now, we don't know at what execution progress we are, right? If that process is about to finish, let's say 90% or something like that, we can take one kind of decision. But if the process is already starting or let's say in the 20% progress, well, maybe the decision is going to be completely different, right? We cannot do that till now. Well, in SQL Server 2019, there is a new feature called lightweight query profiling, right? Which will allow us to see for all the workloads, or the queries, store procedures, or the activity in the server, in the instance, we will be able to see the estimated query progress, right? And to do that, Activity Monitor is one of the tools we can use to see that progress, right? We're going to see it later in the demo. Management Studio Performance Dashboard Reports, right? A while back, this was something that we had to download from the Microsoft website in order to install some components and be able to have these reports. We need to we had to download this reporting services based dashboard, install some scripts to the SQL instance to be able to run these reports. Well, now all this is integrated into our Management Studio and the SQL instance, right? So we have this set of standard reports, again, based on RDLs, files, reporting services. And we can, let's say, easily run all these reports on our instance and get, certain information like, for example, table sizes, index sizes, amount of user requests, user sessions, etc. The next point is dynamic management objects, views and functions. These are read-only objects that SQL Server present to the world, I will say, for us, the DBA, to query. And with this dynamic management object, we can understand what is going on within the SQL Server, right? There are hundreds of DMVs, DMF that we can have access. Here in this slide, I just present few of them, and there are grouped in different categories, right? In this case, transactional, we can see any activity related to transaction, the progress, if they are involved in the logs, etc., etc. Indexes, missing indexes, query stats and plan, etc. It's extremely important to know that every single solution to monitor and troubleshoot SQL Server, right, is based on dynamic management object, right? Free or paid one, right? So SQL Server has everything in these DMOs presented to us. We just need to consume it in the right way. We can join multiple of them and get the right information really, really quickly. The next thing that I want to cover is extended events. This is something that, not so long ago, I mentioned SQL Profiler, right? This is a tool, again, that is coming since the very first SQL Server versions, and it is there, and it's still there. The point is that Microsoft has deprecated or discontinued, meaning that there is no improvement to the tool, right? If we want to use it, we are free to use it. We can use it at any time, but definitely there are no updates. What Microsoft gives us in order to replace Profiler is this technology called extended events, right? This way, very easily, we can create something similar to what we run in Profiler, but much, much lighter and much powerful, right? For new features, for changes, etc., Microsoft will put something new to extended events, and we won't see that in Profiler. Also, take in consideration that using Profiler, if you are not highly experienced with that, and let's say you are using it to trace on a particular situation in where you are running into troubles, maybe CPU usage or high activity, etc. If you don't configure Profiler properly, you might be entering more problems into your session than the ones that you're trying to solve, right? You have to definitely know how to put the predicate, the filters, in order to capture exactly what you're looking for. Because if you're capturing too much, maybe, as I said, you're gonna get more troubles than what the ones that you're trying to look for, right? So definitely extended event is something to pay attention. We're gonna see some of these examples in a few minutes, right? And then, of course, one thing which is extremely important to do all kinds of troubleshootings are the query plans, the execution plans. You can use them graphically, you can use it in text, XML, anyway, right? But the point is that getting an execution plan, right? And for example, all the query plan with the graph you can do troubleshooting. Maybe there are things you can tune or adjust to your query based on the query plan. Within Management Studio, you can have the actual execution plan, which is the real execution plan. So the whole query runs, and at the end, it's present the execution plan. You can get the estimated execution plan. So it's going to present the shape of the plan, but with the estimate instead of the real result. And also we have one's called live execution, live query statistics. So we can see it while the query is running. Okay, so now let's jump for a minute to the first external tool. This is the SentryOne Plan Explorer. This is a free tool that you can use it as a standalone application or as an add-on for Management Studio, right? In where you can export the query plan, right, from Management Studio and open it with this tool. You know, if you have let's say a simple plan, right, you can do the whole troubleshooting with Management Studio. It's not going to be a big deal. But if your plan is a little bit more complex, right, well, this tool will help you to, you know, dig into the plan, right, because it's more prepared to do the analysis for the plans. So this is one of the must-have tools, right? And again, it's free. Then we have Query Store, right? We know that this is a feature that I like to call the flight data recorder. This is like the flight recorder of a plane or a flight, right? But for your user databases, right? This is a feature that is available since SQL Server 2016, Service Pack 1, and you have to enable it per user database, right? And what it does is basically capture all the runtime statistics and execution statistics for all the workload in a particular user database, right? So let's say you have your important, your critical database, you enable Query Store, and you will easily identify and see all the runtime and execution information for that particular query. For example, your report, the one that we've been talking before, how many times it runs in a certain period of time, which was the minimum, maximum, and average duration, reads, writes, write to 10 dB, etc. You can also see the you can also see if for any reason there was a plan change. So you know that for several reasons, right, the execution plan can change sometimes, right? So in this panel, you will see, you know, if a particular statement, a particular process, right, has changed the execution plan. And eventually that plan, we all know that it's not perfect, right? Maybe it's even worse than the one that was running before. Well, with this tool, eventually we have the possibility to force to use a previous execution plan that we consider that was better than the one that was running now, right? And this way we can try to, let's say, stabilize and force the execution based on something that we already know. Really great feature, right? There are a ton of information related to Query Store. In SQL Server 2017, Microsoft added a couple of additional features, like, for example, besides getting execution and runtime information, it also gets weight information. So we know every single process, the amount of weight and what kind of weight it was done over the time. Also in 2017, Microsoft added an additional layer to this with this automatic query tuning, right? So eventually, as I said earlier, if the plan changed and it is not as good as the previous one, well, automatically it will force to use the last known good plan. And this way, the statement, the workload will try to be more, I will say, stable. Right? We're gonna see it in action. Here there are some examples, right, about query store. There is one report which I like a lot because easily we can understand and see the top 25 resource consumers during the certain period of time, and we can focus on them in order to, let's say, do some fix, right, or improvement. Here we have another example. All right, so it's demo time. Let's see some of these things in action. So here I have Management Studio running on a virtual machine, which is running SQL Server 2019, right? And what we will see right now is live query statistics, right? So here I have a query, right? And I will enable here include, this one, include live query statistics. So I will enable it, right? And let's run it. Let's see what happened. We see that it's coming with the plan. And note what we have here, right? Estimated query progress, right? So we can see, right, at which point of the execution this session is running at, right? So we see here at the top, at this point is almost 40%, right? We can also see it down here, right? So it's the same information, and we see the plan in live. So let's see another one. This is something that I mentioned earlier, is a feature in SQL Server 2019 called lightweight query profiling, right? Come on. I can unzoom it. It's nice. I don't know why I cannot zoom it. All right. Never got this problem before. Okay, here we go. Let's cancel this one and let's run this other. We'll see. Again, we can see at which estimated progress of the execution we are at, right? So seeing this right away, we can see if the process is already starting or if it is about to finish. As I said, lightweight query profiling is 2019. It's coming by enabled by default, right? But something new that Microsoft is doing these days is basically porting back these great features to previous SQL Server version, right? For example, in this case, 2016 and 2017, right? So you can have it in 2016 and 2017, right? Not enabled by default, right? Because they don't want to change the normal behavior, right? But you can enable it with a trace flag. So if you want to use it in previous versions, it's possible to use it. So we see it just finished and we see the progress. So now you can tell me, this is really good, I like it, but I don't like to, I mean, I'm not running my workload from Management Studio. I have a web server or an application server that is hitting my instance. So I want to see the estimated query progress and the plan of a session that is running from my middle tier. Okay, so here what I'm gonna do is I have what is it? I have this batch file, which basically what it does, it runs random workload on my user databases on this instance. So this way we can see it in action, right? So this is simulating my middle tier, my web servers hitting my user database. So I will minimize this. I will go again to Management Studio, right-click here, and I will go to Activity Monitor, right? When we go to Activity Monitor, we see it. It's going to take a few seconds to populate the counters. You know, we see all the processes, resource weight, etc. And here at the bottom, we see active expensive queries. So when we expand this, we see all the sessions that are running. So let's choose one of them. I do right click and see what we have here, the option of seeing the live execution plan. So I will hit here and look what we get, the estimated query progress. So for a session that is running from an application server, right, from something that is not Management Studio, we can use Activity Monitor to check the estimated query progress. Again, think on this example that I gave at the beginning of that important report that we had to run in the morning. And we can do this with all the workload that we have on our server. Okay, while this workload is still running against my server, I have in my user database query store enabled. So I will go to Advanced Works 2017, query store, and I have all these reports. This one is, for example, top resource consuming queries. Right? This way we can see the most heaviest queries. I have this one from earlier today in where I was running more heavy traffic. Right? So we can see all the statements that were running there, right? And we can do troubleshoot, right? And you know, as soon as the workload is moving, we can refresh this and see more and more processes. We can also see, for example, queries with regression. That means that for some reason they start using more resources now than before, right? We can do all this with the query store option here and all these options. Okay, switching briefly to something different. Let me cancel this. I will show you something that I use actually in production for based on extended events, right? This is a extended event session that basically what it does is capture all the SQL Server errors on my instance, right? So then it's going to save those errors into a file system on a folder, right, in a pseudo XML file, and then we can get the content of that file, parse it live, and see the SQL Server errors live. So what I'm going to do here is I will delete the previous session that I have with all the files, right, just for the demo purpose. and I will create a new one, right? I will call it XC SQL errors. I will ask it to capture all the SQL errors and send it to a particular file. So I'm creating the session. I'm starting the session, right? And then what I have here underneath is basically a query that will parse the XML that we get and show us the errors, right? Here we can see all the errors that we're gonna get. Okay, so let's generate some random errors. For example, here what I'm gonna do is just do some divisions by 0. You see divide by 0 error in count, right? So I can run it multiple times, and I always, of course, going to get the same error. I can create a store procedure, which is basically also doing the same division by 0 and doing a select from a table that doesn't exist, right? I create in the store procedure, and then I will execute it several times, and we get the error message, right? So when I run the query that will parse the errors, what I get here is all my errors, right? How many times we got that error. We also get the statement, the store procedure name, eventually if it was a store procedure, right? When was the first time it happened, the last time it happened, from which machine and from which application and login it was raised. This way, for example, when you put in production a new code, a new update for your application, well, probably you can run this and at the very beginning and see if there is any big syntax error or SQL error that you can catch here and maybe apply the fix right away. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, now let's start talking about the community expert solutions, right? SP Who's Active, right? This is basically a piece of code generated by Adam Mechanic many years ago, right? And basically what it does is it creates a store procedure called SP Who's Active. And when you run it, basically what it does is take a picture of all the activity running in your SQL server, right? For how long it's been running, all the processes, if they are involved in a log, reads, writes, write on 10db, you name it, right? So it take a picture of what's happening at your instance right now. So when you get that phone call, you get that ticket saying, hey, we are running with performance problems at this moment, right? This is one of the first things that you have to do. Okay, let's see what's happening in my instance right now. And with that, maybe you can just get that there is a big blocking chain, right? And you can do the troubleshooting after get the picture. The important thing and the good thing of this that, as I mentioned earlier, is based on dynamic management option. And when you run it, it come back right away, right? Even if the server is under extreme pressure, right? You're gonna get the results and you're gonna get that picture and will help you to do troubleshooting. So just running it right away, you're gonna get all the information you need, but in the page, at the page, you can go and dig into the documentation and maybe get 4 additional parameters that will help you to narrow down the searches if you're looking for something more specific. Then many years ago, this is a version called SPDBA currently executing that was created by me. It's available in my GitHub, right? And basically it's a wrapper of SP Who's Active, right? It's basically presenting certain information in a different way, which was more focused on different support level teams, right? Again, it's quite similar. It's a wrapper of the existing one. Then another great solution right? It's from Brent Ozar, First Responder Kit. This is a set of scripts that will allow you to do a bunch of things for troubleshooting. Let's cover the most important one, SP Blitz, right? With that, you can check. Running this, what it does is go through all your SQL Server configuration, settings, runtime information, etc., and will present you with a report based on importance, right? And it will tell you you're having troubles with this, and this. And those problems could be that you are not following the best practices in terms of how to configure SQL Server. For example, you have databases in full recovery model that are not being backed up. You are not doing the VCC check DBs. Your TempDB configuration is misconfigured. A bunch of things. And again, you're going to get them in a certain priority, right? So you know that the most important one, the one with the lowest priority, you need to go and fix them maybe right away. The important thing and the nice thing is that you can also have on each of these entry, you will have a link to the documentation to get some ideas on how to help that particular situation. Then, if your server is running slow right now, right, SP Bleed first is a complement of what we saw earlier, SP Who's Active, right, which again will capture all the possible information, runtime information of the current processes, right, and will present you with this priority for you to fix when possible. SP Bleed Cache, right? It will go and scan the whole execution plan, and it will give you a very detailed report on which plans are having which particular problem. For example, running with the wrong DOP, serialization, you name it. It's going to give you this report. And again, it will guide you on how to adjust those problems. So with this information that you're going to get, you're going to be able to adjust, right, your processes reported by this and tune your instance. SP Bleed Index will give you an in-depth information related to your indexes. Not only missing indexes, but you're also going to get indexes that you are not using properly. Maybe you are not using it at all. Maybe you have overlapped indexes or duplicate indexes, and you're going to get all this information. And with that, again, you're going to be able to dig deeper and fix. You can also run this first responder kit on a schedule basis, right? And save the information into a user database, into different user tables. Then there was an option. It's not longer, I mean, it's discontinued right now, but I believe that if you go to the web page, you can get the Power BI file, right? That will basically go and consume the data that was captured in this repository, and you will see it graphically. BP check. This is from the SQL Server Tiger team, right? BP check stands for Best Practices Checker. Again, the Tiger team is one of the most important teams within Microsoft support. So they have a ton of experience on supporting many environments. So they have created this script that will give you all the variations that you may have from your instance versus the best practices, and I will guide you on how to fix them or adjust them. Glenn Berry's SQL Performance, SQL Diagnostic Queries, right? You have to go to his webpage and download it based on the SQL Server version that that you have. Again, it's just go and cover and do a deep scan of your instance and your user databases, and will present you with information of variation from the best practices. As you can see, some of these tools that I just presented, there are some areas that are overlapping one to each other, right? But again, it's good to know them all, because for some cases, one of them, it could be better than other, right? But not in other cases, right? So it's good to know them. You're gonna get a report like this, right? Within Management Studio, very detailed, and also with, let's say, with some additional input for you to go and check. PowerShell, right? If we are managing multiple SQL Server environments, we need to do some sort of automation, right? And DBA tools is the right way. This is a PowerShell component that you install very easily into your monitoring machine. And here you can see several categories of the things that you can do with DBA tools. You can get, let's say, if you need to go to 100 SQL Server instances and get information about the availability group, how the 10DB is configured, I don't know, how the SP configure is doing, how the max DOP is configured. Again, for 1-2 servers, it's easy. But if you have to do it for 100, it's more complicated. With DBA Power Tool and PowerShell, it's really simple. Azure Data Studio, notebooks, right? This is something that is the new tool that Microsoft is pushing everybody to use, right? Because it's multi-platform. You can run it in Windows, Linux, and Mac. And it has this concept of notebooks, right? And all the solutions that I've been presenting till now, BPCheck, Glenberry's Script, and also First Responder Kit, they have a version in Jupyter notebooks, notebook, that you can get everything in a notebook, right? Save it and maybe share it with others. If you're talking about maintenance, if you have to do backups, integrity checks in there, or statistic maintenance, well, the solution is the Ola Hallegrin maintenance script, right? This is something that, again, is a community-based solution, but most of the professionals are using it and relying on them because they are really simple to use. If you need to do any index maintenance, right, there is also a possibility of doing it through this graphic user interface, right, that allow you to connect to your database, and it's going to retrieve you in a graphical way all the indexes, the tables, and the fragmentation level. And from there, you will be able to run, rebuild, reorganize, or whatever you need to do. Mm-hmm. So we're okay. And then just to close, we have this option called SQL Watch IO, right? A tool that I really like because, again, it's based on most of the script that we just saw, right? And it's going to save the output into a user database, and based in Power BI, you can get very detailed dashboards and specification on your SQL Server instance, right? And with that, you can see it graphically, sqlwatch.io. Mm-hmm. Well, here you have additional resources from Microsoft if you want to dig deeper. Here are all the references for the scripts and the thing that I've been presenting today. The presentation will be available in the PASS website later today, right? And with that, I'm done with the presentation. If you have any questions, you can do them now, or again, you can contact me anytime through my social network addresses. LinkedIn or Twitter are the ones that I'm more active. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for staying here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.